Welcome to something to talk about.
Hi, welcome to Something to Talk About. My name is Taco, and this is Maester Week 2. We did a Maester Week last year, and we're doing it again. And yeah, that means you're getting a video on Friday. You're getting a bonus video, and you're getting a pretty big one, because this Maester is a freaking Targaryen. Vaegon Targaryen. Yes, I know there's also another way more famous Maester who I will never cover because he's too big of a character, Maester Aemon. But this is a Targaryen Maester who isn't as big as Maester Aemon, who I can cover, who's really interesting. And yeah, so let's do it, man. This is Maester Week. Like I said, I covered Maester Vaegon on Tuesday, and I will be covering Pylos tomorrow. So be there for it. And yeah, if you don't know what's going on here, pause this, read this. And yeah, you guys are ready to rock? I'm ready to rock. Let's rock. Vaegon the Dragonless. Vaegon, born Prince Vaegon Targaryen, was an Archmaester of the Citadel. He was the seventh-born child of a King Jaehaerys Targaryen and Queen Alysanne Targaryen, and he was called Vaegon the Dragonless. It is crazy that he's dragonless. This is like, he's such a weird Targaryen. He doesn't seem very Targaryen-y, as we will learn, mostly because this is a son of Jaehaerys, so this is where this is all as a Fire and Blood character. It's when it's taking place, right? We're going to get to the years that it's taking place, but it's during the reign of King Jaehaerys, a little into his reign, right? And yeah, so if you're wondering what time, and at this time, every Targaryen freaking had a dragon, and he's the only son that makes it to adulthood of Jaehaerys that doesn't have a dragon. And even, like, not all the daughters, but most of the daughters had dragons too. But yeah, so let's go. Vaegon had silver gold hair and purple eyes of Targaryens. However, he could not be described as comely. He had a long face with round shoulders, even at a young age. He always had a pinched sour cast to his mouth. Vaegon was never robust. People considered him to be sour, and he had the ability to make everyone around him miserable as well. Wow. Sounds like a great dude. He was not a coward, but he did not enjoy martial studies of squires or pages. He was a miserable fighter and not well trained at arms. He was a bookish boy and much preferred the library, where he could often be found. Vaegon was also remarkably disinterested in sex or romance, and books were his only passion. Yeah, if I start making fun of this dude, it isn't for all those things. If you're not a sexual person, that's your own business. I'm not making fun of somebody for that or for not being martial. The reason I dislike this dude is because he's a dick. He's a jerk. And that's one thing of like, man, why you got to be so miserable? And why do you got to make everyone around you miserable? Try to work on yourself, right? Like, if you think everybody in the room's a jerk, maybe you're the jerk. That's something that jerks like me have to, come to terms with eventually and try to work on. I'm not saying I'm not a jerk, but I try not to be a jerk, which is something that Vaegon does not do. All right. Maester or Order of Maesters. So the Maesters are an order of scholars, healers, messengers, and scientists. They educate new students at the Citadel, which is an old town, a city in the Reach. House Hightower was integral in the Citadel's foundation, and it continues to support the order. As advisors to Westerosi nobility, the Maester have largely supplanted the Alchemist Guild. They are sometimes called the Knights of the Mind. A Maester can be recognized by the chain he wears around his neck. The collar is intended to remind a Maester of the realm he serves. The links of the chain can be made of every metal known to man, and each link signifies a subject he has mastered. So yeah. Now that we get that, we can move on. So let's start off a vexing year. In 63 AC, after the conquest, middle-aged King Jaehaerys and good Queen Alysanne. All All right, I'm back. I stopped because I was having a coughing fit, and I had to pause it. In 63, middle-aged King Jaehaerys and good Queen Alysanne celebrated the birth of Vaegon Targaryen, their fourth son and seventh child. A year later came another daughter, Daella Targaryen. Prince Vaegon was unlike his elder brothers as knight today. So we immediately say he's a little different. He doesn't act like Aemon and Balon. And I know I said fourth son, and it's because their eldest son, Aegon, died like in the cradle or really early on. Didn't make it a year, I think is the words that they use. But yeah, so their second son, Aemon, is the one who grows up the most, and then is like the heir at this point, right? And then Balon is the second son. So Vaegon is the third son of Jaehaerys and seventh born child altogether. So yeah, a lot of kids, these guys, these kids. In 73 AC, it was a vexing year, thanks to Lucamore the Lusty. Go watch my Lucamore the Lusty videos if you don't know why 73 sucked, because his whole thing was in that. But it was not the only difficulty Jaehaerys and Alysanne faced that year. The other vexing question was of their seventh and eighth born children, Prince Vaegon and Princess Daella. Queen Alysanne took great pride in arranging marriages and had put together hundreds of fruitful unions for lords and ladies from one end of the realm to the other. But never had she faced such difficulty as she did whilst searching for mates for her four younger children. We're not going to talk about all four. This is as easy as this could have been of a let's talk about all of Jaehaerys' kids video. I really do try to keep it to just Vaegon stuff. So yeah, of course I do mention the other children, but he is the focus, right? So yeah. Took great pride in arranging marriages. Yeah, the four younger children. The frustration started with Vaegon and Daella. 1 year apart in age, the prince and princess seemed well matched as babies. What are you talking? And the king and queen assumed that the two of them would eventually marry. All right, I'm not going to spend this entire video harping on incest. All right, I'm going to spend a lot of this video harping on incest, but but what are you talking about as babies? They seem like a good man. They're babies. Like they're pooping on themselves romantically. Like, what do you, man, look at those babies. They got a spark. Yeah, one's peeing and the other one's has their hand in their mouth. Like, I have a baby. I have a baby son right now. He is 7 months old when this video comes out. He just like, he doesn't do any, like, I'm not like, you got a thing for that chick? Like, what are you talking? Anyways, there's a lot of that talk in here, and it grosses me out. All right, anyways, seemed like a good match. Look at them. What are you talking about? All right, anyways, yeah, the king and queen assumed that the two would eventually marry. Balon and Alyssa had become inseparable, and plans were already being made for them to wed. Why not Vaegon and Daella as well? Be sweet to your sister, the incestuous King Jerry told the prince when he was 5. I had to throw in that adjective. One day she will be your Alysanne. Gross. Gross. You know, take the incest out. Gross. Like, even if it's not, like, imagine if, like, I'm talking to my, like, 3 or 4 year old son, and there's just another girl. It's like, be nice to her. I'm forcing you to marry her soon. Like, it would be, what are you talking? Like, I know our society is different than their society. It's still weird. I don't care. It changed the way it did for a reason. All right, wasting Arbor gold. As the children grew, however, it became apparent the two of them were not ideally suited. There was no warmth between them. Vaegon tolerated her presence, but never sought it out. Daella seemed frightened of her bookish brother, who would sooner read than play. Vaegon thought Daella was stupid, and she thought him mean. They're only children, Jerry said to Alysanne when Alysanne brought the problem up to their attention. They will warm to another, or they were warm to one another in time. They never did, and it got worse. Again, all right, I'm not going to keep harping on it. Hey, our 10-year-old son's not like flirting with our 9-year-old daughter. I think we're in a crisis. Don't worry about it. It will happen in time. Sick people. All right. The matter came to a head in the vexing year that we already talked about, 73 AC, when the Queen's companion, when one of the Queen's companions, new to the Red Keep, teasingly asked the two of them when they would be married, and Vaegon reacted as if he was slapped. I would never marry her, the boys said in front of half the court. She can barely read. She should find some lord in need of stupid children, for that's the only sort he will ever get of her. Giella burst into tears and fled the hall, with her mother rushing after her. It fell to her sister Alyssa, by the way, I love Alyssa Targaryen, at age 13 to pour a flagon of wine over his head. Even that did not make the prince repent. He just said, "You're wasting Arbor gold," was all he said before stalking from the hall to change his clothing. After that, the king and queen plainly saw that they needed to find a new match for Vaegon. I mean, you should have just started with somebody out of the family. It's weird that you needed this to push you. Targaryens. I will never leave them off the hook. All right. I've had people like, "Hey man, why do you always harp on Targaryen sets?" Why? What are you talking? Because it's messed up. I'm not like full on faith militant by any means, but I'm just I find like I love Fire and Blood, but the middle part of Fire and Blood, King Jaehaerys and Alysanne's like chapters, like half of them are about incest, and they're half about like they're the greatest couple that ever lived, brother and sister. And then it's like, oh, they're having a lot of issues because their children won't marry each other. It's like, oh my god, gross. All right. Anyways, training with sword. Briefly, they considered their younger sisters, Sarah, who was 6 years old in 73 AC, the vexing year, and Visera, only 2. Alysanne told Jerry, Vaegon has never looked twice at either of them. I'm not sure he's aware they exist. Perhaps if some maester wrote about them in a book. Gross. Yeah, dude, if your 10-year-old son's checking out any of his young sisters, I don't know. He's been looking at I'm not even finishing that joke. Gross. All right, moving on. I told you, I won't harp on it all video. I might. Jerry says that the boy is just 10 and doesn't see girls, and they don't see him either. But he is the third in line to the throne. And in a few more years, maidens will be fluttering around him like butterflies. The queen was unconvinced since he isn't very good looking for a Targaryen. Then says that if any butterfly that flutters around Vaegon, he's probably just going to squish. He's like to squash it flat beneath the book. Jerry says that he'll speak to Balon and put a sword in his hand, and that will set him straight. His Grace, old King Jerry, did indeed speak to Prince Balon, who dutifully took his brother under his wing and marched him into the yard and put a sword in his hand and a shield on his arm. It did not set him right, and Vaegon hated it. So before we get into this, if you guys don't know, Balon Greyjoy, the second son, is absolutely, both of them, both Aemon and Balon are like renowned fighters. Like they're both tourney champions, right? So just keep that in mind. Like, hey, teach your brother. It's kind of like something that both Jaehaerys, Aemon, and Balon have in common, is that they're all really good fighters. So, of course, Jaehaerys is like, oh, when he'll learn how to fight, he'll be fine. Because that's what I did. I learned how to fight, and I loved it. And then my other two sons just put a sword in his hand. Anyways, let's talk about the roads I'm building, or whatever the hell Jaehaerys was up to at this point, right? Where was I? Yeah, Vaegon hated it. He was a miserable fighter, and he made everyone around him miserable as well, even Balon the Brave. Baelon persisted for a year at the king's insistence. The more he drills, the worse he looks, he confessed. One day he brought his sister Alyssa to the yard, shining in man's mail, who had not forgotten the incident with the Arbor gold. Laughing and shouting mockery, she danced around her little brother and humiliated him. As Della looked down from the window, shamed beyond endurance, Vaegon threw down his sword and ran from the yard, never to return. I'm on Vaegon's side here. You think that was gonna get him the fighting? It's like, all right, I'm trying everything I could. Like, this is Vaegon Targaryen here. I tried everything I could. Why don't we have his bigger sister beat him up in front of everybody? That will help. Like, dude, I would run for, I wouldn't want to be humiliated. And I'm not saying it's a girl, but not because he's getting beat by a girl, but being humiliated in front of everybody and getting knocked down as somebody beats you up and laughs, that doesn't help anything. It was a horrible plan from Baelon. All right. He is no maester. The king had not been entirely wrong about the butterflies. As the years passed and Vaegon matured, young ladies at court began to pay him some attention. Age and some uncomfortable discussions with his father and brothers had taught the prince the rudiments of courtesy, and he did not squash any of the girls. Well, that's good. But he took no special notice of any of them either. Books remained his only passion. Grand Maester Elisar confessed to having given the prince a volume of erotic drawings, thinking that the pictures of naked maidens, quote, behaving with men and beasts and one another might kindle interest in women. And beasts? What? That's a little advanced. It's pictures of naked women, and they're messing around with beasts. What? I'll give them that book. What's with Targaryens, dude? All right. The prince kept the book, but showed no change in behavior. On Vaegon's 15th birthday, in 78 AC, Jaehaerys and Alysanne broached the obvious solution to the Grand Maester. He asked if Vaegon had the makings of a maester, and Elisar answered bluntly, no. Can you see him instructing some lord's children how to read and write and do simple sums? Does he keep a raven in his chamber or any other sort of bird? Can you imagine him removing a man's crushed leg or delivering a baby? All these are required of a maester. The Grand Maester paused and said, Vaegon is no maester, but he could have the makings of an Archmaester in him. The Citadel is the greatest repository of knowledge in the known world. Send him there. Mayhaps he will find himself in the library. That or he will get lost among the books or he'll get so lost among the books that you'll never need to concern yourselves with him again. Pretty much what happens. All right. Leaving court. His words struck home, and 3 days later, Jaehaerys summoned Vaegon to his solar to tell him that he would be taking a ship for Old Town in a fortnight, and the Citadel will take charge of him, and he will need to determine what becomes of him. The prince responded curtly, as his style, yes, father, good. Afterwards, Jaehaerys told the queen that he thought Vaegon almost smiled. Not quite. It's almost. By 99 AC, so we are skipping really far ahead. So if I believe, this is 79 AC is right now. So now we're jumping 21 years, right? Yeah. So by 99 AC, Alysanne felt lost with the death of so many of her children. So I'm not explaining what happened to all of her kids. This isn't a video for them, but just know a lot of Ellie and Jerry's kids don't grow up. Vaegon, now 36 years old, and an Archmaester at the Citadel, who was once a cold and distant son, he had grown to be a cold and distant man. He wrote Alysanne as a son ought. His words were dutiful, but there was no warmth to them, and it had been years since Alysanne had last seen his face. At this point, there was only Balon who stayed close to her until her death in 100 AC. Balon didn't wait long to follow his mother into the grave, dying of a burst belly in 101 AC. This left his grace faced with a dilemma. For once more, the succession was in doubt. With both of the heir apparent dead and burned, there was no longer a clear successor to the Iron Throne. But that was not to say that there was any lack of claimants. Aemon's only living child was female, but she had a son, Laenor. Balon had two living sons, Viserys and Daemon. Yes, that Viserys and that Daemon. And that, Laenor. And that Laenor. So keep in mind in the book, like in the show House of Dragon, it's like Viserys or Rhaenys is like the Council of One-on-One, and who's gonna get it between those two. It's actually between Laenor, because right away Rhaenys and her eldest daughter are knocked out of the possibility. So it was actually Laenor or Viserys was the actual like front runners, among other people. So yeah, Archmaester Vaegon, now a very old king. Jaehaerys still had one surviving son, Vaegon, who was an Archmaester at the Citadel and holder of the ring and rod and mask of yellow gold, signifying mathematics or economics, which is cool. Known to history as Vaegon the Dragonless, his very existence had been largely forgotten by most of the Seven Kingdoms, though only 40 years of age. So the book calls him 40 years at this point, but I did the math. He's 38. I don't know why. I'm going off of Fire and Blood. The Fire and Blood said at this point at 101, he's 38. I don't know why they went with that. Only 40 years of age. Vaegon was pale and frail, a bookish man devoted to alchemy, astronomy, mathematics, and other arcane arts. There you go. Few considered him a viable choice to sit the Iron Throne, and yet it was to Archmaester Vaegon that old King Jaehaerys turned to now, summoning his last son to King's Landing. What passed between them remains a matter of dispute. Some say the king offered Vaegon the throne, but he was refused. Others assert that he only sought his counsel. Reports had reached the court that Corlys Velaryon was massing ships on Driftmark in support of his son Laenor, while Daemon Targaryen, a hot-tempered young man of 20, you guys know Daemon, had gathered sworn swords in support of his brother Viserys. Yeah, the war, like the Dance of Dragons, about to start like 20 years early, right? I'm not doing math right now. But yeah, like there's already like Corlys is getting people and Daemon's getting people. Like they're ready to fight. A violent struggle for succession was likely no matter who the old king picked. No doubt that was why his grace seized eagerly on the solution offered by Archmaester Vaegon. So Vaegon is actually the person who came up with the Council of 101, which is really interesting. The Great Council and beyond. King Jaehaerys announced his intent to convene a great council to discuss, debate, and ultimately decide the matter of succession. Let the claimants make their cases before assembled lords. His grace decreed he would abide by the council's decision, whomever they might choose. So yeah, it's a great council 101. They all go to Harrenhal. Jaehaerys is too old. I know in the first episode of House of Dragon, he's there, and there's that like famous picture, right? But he's not there in the books. He doesn't go. And a bunch of people show up and they all vote. And yeah, I actually really like the Great Council 101. It's very interesting. This was the last we heard of Vaegon. And that's likely because he just disappeared in the Citadel library like they thought he would. Yeah, it's kind of really funny that Grand Maester Alysanne calls it. He's like, dude, you send him there and he'll probably just disappear and it's the last you hear about him. And we hear nothing about him. And he's pretty much out, besides the one time he visits his dad and a couple letters he sent to his mom. That's the last you actually hear about him. That's crazy. He's reading his books. It is unknown if he was still alive during the Dance of the Dragons, though it was not implausible. He was only 38 years old at the time of the Great Council and would have been 65-ish years by the outbreak of the Civil War in 129 AC. For that matter, the first volume of Archmaester Gildane's history, Fire and Blood, that's the book that, all this is based on, stops in 136 when the long regency of Aegon III ended, at which time Vaegon would have been 72-ish. It is possible that Vaegon's ultimate fate is detailed in the second book of Gildane's history, Fire and Blood Volume 2, which isn't out yet, at some point later in the reign of Aegon III. Or they just don't say. We don't know. Is he alive? Is he not? We have no clue. Which is, I don't know, it's pretty funny. All right. Vaegon the Traitor. He is a fascinating character. His vague life leaves a ton of mystery, especially where he was during the dance. If he is still alive, he's a mirror of sorts to Aemon from the main books, Maester Aemon. As we know, the fall of House Targaryen greatly wounded Aemon. He was really sad that he couldn't do anything about it because he was up on the wall. But Vaegon wasn't exactly a nice dude. He's pretty much nothing like Aemon that way. Their lives are very close, but Aemon's this big lovable grandpa, and Vaegon is not. He might just not care during the dance. Maybe he just doesn't give a crap. But yeah, we shall never know. Yeah, it's really interesting that there's a Targaryen at the Citadel during the Dance of the Dragons, and we learn nothing about it. It's crazy to me. I found a Reddit post from about 7 years ago by Descartes Blanche, called "Is Vaegon a ... Ooh, mystery. What is he? Is he an apple? Is that what they're asking? Is he a peach farmer? I don't know. I don't know why I went to fruit for both of them. And in this post, they posed the idea that Vaemon might have betrayed the royal family once in the Citadel and joined the, quote, Grand Maester conspiracy to destroy House Targaryen and kill the dragons. You guys know about the Grand Maester conspiracy. It's something that Archmaester Marwyn the Mage brings up, oh, who do you think destroyed the dragons the first time? That's something that Marwyn brings up. So there's this big thing on maesters being very anti-Targaryen, very anti-magic. And for the most part, I don't know if it's this conspiracy, but I definitely think maesters have a bias against Targaryens. Whether or not it's a big covenant and they're all wearing hoods and they're all meeting in the basement. They're here's how we'll destroy Targaryens. I don't think there's that. I don't think there's a conspiracy. But I feel once you go to the Citadel, it's kind of a bias there. People talk about it. It pushes you away from magic is the culture there. And then if you fall into it, you fall into it. Or maybe it's a grand conspiracy. But either way, here we go. He might have, so he might have suggested the council to his father specifically to sow the seeds of a civil war. And you know what? I find that very possible. So yeah, he might have had the idea where he's there so long that he pretty much has been indoctrinated in this idea that Targaryens and dragons are bad for the realm. And then when his dad asked him, he goes, all right, just have everybody vote. Because think about what that does. If the Civil War started at that moment, right? If Corlys Velaryon started attacking and Daemon started attacking, you're having a battle between Corlys Velaryon and Daemon. It's probably, if it spreads, it probably won't spread that much. You make people vote, and then all of a sudden people are drawing lines on the sand. We now voted green or we voted black, and we don't even know what green or black means yet. but I voted for this person, you voted for that. Next thing you know, lines are being decided, right? And then you let one person get in charge, so then they're now in charge of armies, other people start, and it grows and grows and grows and grows and grows. If he would have just said, pick Viserys or pick Vaenar, why can't I remember his name right now? Doesn't matter. I said it earlier. Laenor, there you go. Pick Laenor or pick Viserys. It might have started a fight, but not a full-on civil war. You need 30 years to sow dissent for that to happen. And maybe Vaegon knows that. Maybe he's like, I don't know, have everybody else choose, because that way when it all pops off, it's going to pop off so much bigger. It's going to be dragons versus dragons, kill almost all the dragons, if not all of them, and maybe even kill House the Targaryen. Do I think he did that? No, but it's plausible. And if he wanted to do it, that's how he would have done it, right? So, yeah. And lastly, Quinn the GM made a post called Vaegon the First Green Dragon, which is a lot like what we were just talking about. I highly suggest it if you want more Vaegon action. Check it out. Tell him I sent you. Vaegon Targaryen, the First Green Dragon. Yeah. First Green Targaryen. All right. Thank you guys for watching. We're going to keep going with Maester Week. I'm not filming Pylos right after this, so my hair might look different. I'm going back to work tomorrow, so I'm doing it in a week. I'll film, but yeah. So keep that in mind if I look different. My beard will maybe grow in a week. Who knows? So thank you for watching. Let's keep Maester Week running. Click like, subscribe, share it to people who like us talk about and fire content. Click that hype button, and yeah, that's all I got. Go say hi to Quinn the GM and tell him I sent you, and that's all I got. Peace.